When we think about emotional abuse, we usually think about how it makes someone feel sad or scared. But did you know it can actually change the physical shape of your brain? That's right. Emotional abuse doesn't just hurt your feelings, it can affect how your brain works and looks. Here's how it happens. When someone is emotionally abused, their brain is flooded with stress hormones like cortisol. Think of cortisol as your body's alarm system. It's helpful when you're in real danger because it helps you react quickly. But when you're constantly under stress from emotional abuse, this alarm system is always on, which isn't good. Too much cortisol over a long time can start to shrink an important part of the brain called the hippocampus. The hippocampus is like a memory and learning center in your brain. It's where you store new information and remember things. So if this part of the brain gets smaller, it can become harder to focus, learn new things, or even remember what happened during the day. You might find yourself feeling confused, forgetful, or unable to concentrate on your schoolwork or hobbies. But that's not all. Emotional abuse can also affect another important part of your brain called the prefrontal cortex. This part of the brain is like your control center. It helps you make good decisions, solve problems, and control your impulses. When emotional abuse affects the prefrontal cortex, you might find it harder to think things through or make decisions. You might also have trouble controlling your reactions to things. This could explain why someone might feel stuck in a cycle of making poor decisions or find it really hard to get out of bad situations. So, emotional abuse isn't just about feeling hurt or upset in the moment. It can actually rewire your brain, making it more difficult to think clearly and plan for the future. It's like the brain is being trained to stay stuck in a state of confusion and pain. The more someone is exposed to emotional abuse, the harder it can be for their brain to work the way it's supposed to. The good news is that the brain is incredibly resilient. That means it has the ability to heal and change if given the right support and care. By understanding how emotional abuse can physically change the brain, we can better understand why it's so important to seek help and start the healing process. Have you ever felt really scared? Like when you're watching a spooky movie or hear a loud noise in the dark? That fear comes from a part of your brain called the amygdala. The amygdala is like your brain's alarm system. It's the part that helps you react quickly when there's danger, triggering your fight or flight response. This is super helpful if you need to jump out of the way of a fast-moving car or escape a dangerous situation. But what happens when someone is emotionally abused? The amygdala can become overactive, kind of like an alarm that won't stop ringing even when there's no real danger. If someone is constantly put down, yelled at, or made to feel worthless, their amygdala starts to think that they are always in danger, even in everyday situations that aren't actually threatening. Imagine feeling like you're in a scary movie all the time. That's what it can be like when your amygdala is overactive. You might feel constantly on edge, like something bad is about to happen, even when things seem normal to everyone else. You could get really nervous about small things that usually wouldn't bother you, like a friend not texting back right away, or someone looking at you the wrong way. This is because your brain is in a constant state of alertness, always ready to react as if there's an emergency. This can make life feel exhausting. When your amygdala is always working overtime, it's hard to relax or feel safe. You might find yourself overreacting to little problems, like getting really upset if you make a small mistake, or if something doesn't go as planned. This is because your brain is stuck in a fight or flight mode, making it hard to tell the difference between actual danger and everyday challenges. Over time, living in this state of constant fear can take a toll on your mental and physical health. You might feel tired all the time because your body is using a lot of energy to stay on high alert. You might also have trouble sleeping, concentrating in school, or enjoying activities you used to love because your brain is always in survival mode. Understanding this can help explain why emotional abuse is so damaging. It's not just about feeling sad or upset. It's about how your brain gets trained to be afraid all the time. But remember, just like with other parts of the brain, the amygdala can also heal. With the right support, like talking to someone you trust or working with a therapist, you can start to calm that alarm system down and help your brain learn to feel safe again. Emotional abuse doesn't just make you feel sad or upset. It can also mess with the way your brain works. Inside your brain, there are special chemicals called neurotransmitters that help control your mood. Think of these like little messengers that tell your brain how to feel. Two important ones are serotonin and dopamine. Serotonin helps you feel calm and happy, while dopamine is like a reward system, helping you feel pleasure and motivation. When someone goes through emotional abuse, these neurotransmitters can get all out of balance. It's like if the messengers are getting the wrong instructions or aren't working properly. When serotonin levels drop, you might start feeling really down or anxious all the time. This is because serotonin helps keep your mood steady, and without enough of it, you might feel like you're on an emotional roller coaster, where it's hard to feel happy or even just okay. Dopamine is also affected by emotional abuse. Normally, dopamine helps you feel excited about things like when you finish a fun project or spend time with friends. But when someone is emotionally abused, their brain might not release as much dopamine, making it harder to feel motivated or enjoy activities that you used to love. Even simple tasks like getting out of bed or doing homework can start to feel overwhelming and too much to handle. Another part of the brain that gets affected by emotional abuse is the prefrontal cortex. This part of the brain helps you control your emotions and reactions. You can think of it as the brain's emotion manager. When it's working well, it helps you stay calm when you're upset and think before you act. But emotional abuse can make this part of the brain less effective. This might make you feel like your emotions are all over the place, with intense mood swings where you're feeling fine one minute and really upset the next. This can make it really hard to handle stress. Maybe a small problem, like a friend cancelling plans, suddenly feels like a huge deal. Or maybe you find yourself getting really angry or sad over things that wouldn't usually bother you. This is because your brain isn't able to regulate your emotions as well as it should. It's almost like the emotional abuse has scrambled the brain's ability to keep everything in balance. All of this means that emotional abuse can leave someone feeling trapped in a cycle of negative emotions. It's not just about feeling hurt in the moment. It changes how your brain deals with emotions, making it harder to feel happy, calm, or in control. But it's important to know that these changes aren't permanent. The brain is capable of healing, especially with the right help and support, by talking to someone, going to therapy, or finding other healthy ways to cope. It's possible to start restoring the balance in your brain and learning to manage emotions in a healthier way. Cognitive dissonance might sound like a complicated term, but it's something many people go through, especially when dealing with emotional abuse. It's when your brain struggles to handle two conflicting ideas at the same time. Imagine you're in a situation where someone you care about, like a friend or family member, is the person causing you pain. You love them, but they also make you feel really bad about yourself. Your brain doesn't like this conflict because it's confusing and uncomfortable. In an abusive relationship, this conflict happens a lot. On one hand, you have feelings of love or attachment toward the person who's hurting you. You might have good memories with them, and they might have moments where they're kind and caring. On the other hand, you're also feeling hurt, scared, or upset because of how they're treating you. Your brain tries to make sense of this, but it's like trying to fit two puzzle pieces together that just don't match. Because your brain wants to resolve this conflict, it might start to rationalize or make excuses for the abuser's behavior. For example, you might think, maybe they didn't mean to hurt me, or it's my fault. They're acting this way. You might convince yourself that things aren't as bad as they seem or that you're overreacting. This is your brain's way of trying to reduce the discomfort of having these conflicting feelings. It wants to find a way to make the situation feel less confusing, even if that means ignoring the reality of the abuse. This process can make it really hard to recognize that you're in an unhealthy situation. Instead of seeing the abuse for what it is, your brain keeps trying to make sense of the mixed emotions you're experiencing. This can lead to staying in the abusive relationship longer than you should because you're stuck in this mental tug of war. One part of your brain wants to leave because it knows something is wrong, but another part is trying to find reasons to stay because it remembers the good times or hopes things will get better. Cognitive dissonance can also make you doubt your own judgment. You might start to question if what you're feeling is real or if you're just imagining things. This confusion can be overwhelming because you're not sure which thoughts to trust. It's like being in a fog where nothing seems clear. And this uncertainty makes it even harder to make decisions about what to do next. Understanding cognitive dissonance is important because it helps explain why people sometimes stay in abusive relationships even when they're unhappy. It's not about being weak or not knowing what's happening. It's about how the brain tries to protect you from the pain of facing the truth. But the good news is, once you understand this process, you can start to work through it. Recognizing that your brain is trying to make sense of a confusing situation is the first step toward breaking free from the cycle of abuse. With support and help, you can start to see things more clearly and make decisions that are better for your well-being. Trauma bonding is a tricky and confusing thing that happens in abusive relationships. It's when someone forms a strong emotional connection to their abuser, even though the relationship is harmful. This might sound strange at first. Why would anyone feel attached to someone who's hurting them? But it's important to understand how this bond forms and why it can be so hard to break. Trauma bonding usually develops through a cycle of abuse followed by kindness or affection. Imagine a situation where someone treats you really badly. They might insult you, make you feel worthless, or control what you do. Then after a while, they switch gears and suddenly become kind, loving, or apologetic. They might give you compliments, say they're sorry, or do something nice for you. This sudden change can be incredibly confusing, but it also creates a powerful emotional response in your brain. When the abuser is being kind, your brain releases chemicals like dopamine and oxytocin. Dopamine is the feel-good chemical that makes you feel happy and rewarded, while oxytocin is often called the love hormone because it helps you feel connected and bonded to others. During these moments of kindness, your brain gets a rush of these chemicals, which creates a strong sense of relief and happiness. It's like a break in the storm, a moment where things seem okay again. This makes you feel deeply connected to the abuser, and you start to crave these positive moments, even though they are mixed with the bad ones. The problem is, this cycle of abuse and affection creates a roller coaster of emotions. When things are bad, you feel terrible, but when the abuser is kind, it feels so good that you start to focus on those positive moments, hoping they will last. Your brain starts to associate the abuser with both pain and comfort, which is incredibly confusing. It's like your brain is tricked into thinking that this person is the source of both the problem and the solution. You end up feeling dependent on them for those rare moments of kindness, even though they're the ones causing the pain in the first place. This cycle can create a very strong bond, almost like an addiction. You might find yourself constantly trying to please the abuser, hoping to get back to that honeymoon phase where they're being nice. This is why it can be so hard to leave an abusive relationship. Your brain is holding on to the hope that things will get better or go back to how they were during those moments of affection. It's not just about the fear of leaving, it's about the deep emotional bond that has been formed through this cycle of abuse and kindness. Understanding trauma bonding can help explain why someone might stay in an abusive relationship even when it's clearly harmful. It's not about being weak or not understanding what's happening. It's about how the brain becomes wired to seek out those moments of relief and happiness. The good news is, once you recognize this pattern, you can start to break free from it. It's possible to heal and find relationships that are healthy and truly loving. With the right support and help, you can learn to build connections based on real trust and respect, not on a cycle of abuse and temporary affection. One of the most harmful effects of emotional abuse is how it changes the way you see yourself and the world around you. Over time, being constantly put down, criticized, or manipulated can make you start to believe the negative things the abuser says about you. This can lead to very low self-esteem, where you feel like you're not good enough or that you deserve to be treated badly. It's like the abuse slowly changes the way you think about yourself until you can't see your own worth anymore. Imagine hearing hurtful things over and over again, like being told you're not smart, you're not lovable, or that everything is your fault. Even if you know deep down that these things aren't true, hearing them repeatedly can make you start to believe them. It's like planting seeds of doubt in your mind that grow into big negative thoughts about yourself. You might start to think maybe they're right, or maybe I really am worthless. This is how emotional abuse can crush your self-esteem and make you feel small and unimportant. But it doesn't stop there. Abusers often use a tactic called gaslighting to further confuse you and make you doubt your own reality. Gaslighting is when someone manipulates you into questioning your own memories, perceptions, or even your sanity. For example, if you confront them about something hurtful they did, they might say, "That never happened," or "You're just being too sensitive." Over time, this can make you start to question what's real and what's not. You might wonder if you're just imagining things, or if you're the one who's wrong. This constant manipulation can make you feel like you're living in a fog. You're unsure of what's true and what's not because the abuser has made you doubt your own judgment. This altered perception of reality can make it incredibly hard to leave the abusive relationship. You might think, maybe it's not as bad as I think, or maybe it's all in my head. This confusion makes you feel trapped, like you can't trust yourself to make decisions about what's best for you. When your self-esteem is low and your sense of reality is warped, it becomes easier for the abuser to keep control over you, and you might feel like you're not worthy of love and respect, or that you deserve the mistreatment you're getting. This can make you feel hopeless, like there's no way out. But it's important to know that these feelings are a result of the abuse, not a reflection of who you really are. Recognizing that emotional abuse has altered your perception of yourself, and reality is the first step toward healing. It's like taking off a pair of dark glasses that have been distorting your view of the world. With the right support, you can start to rebuild your self-esteem and see things more clearly. You can learn to trust your own judgment again and realize that you are worthy of love, respect, and happiness. It might take time, but with help, you can begin to heal and see yourself for who you truly are. Strong, valuable, and deserving of a life free from abuse. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time.